A candle trembles in the draught of a stone cell. Outside, a night without a single light. Imagine you're 30 years old. By the standards of your time, you're already old. You've never seen a map of your own country. You've never read a book. There simply aren't any where you live. You don't know the earth is round, even though learned monks have known it for 1,000 years. For you, the world is your village, the forest beyond it, and the church on the hill. Everything past that is just rumor. Every morning starts with a bell. Not an alarm clock, not the sun. A bell. It tells you when to pray, when to work, when to eat. Time isn't yours, time belongs to the church. You don't believe in germs. You believe the plague is God's wrath. If someone in the village falls ill, you don't look for a cause. You look for someone to blame, a witch, a Jew, a stranger, a sinner. In 1348, when the Black Death reached Europe, up to half the population of some towns died within a few years. People didn't know fleas and rats were killing them. They thought sin was killing them. You look at the stars not as physics but as a text. An eclipse isn't astronomy, it's a message. A comet is an omen of war or the death of a king. In 1066, a comet passed over England. People took it as a sign. Blood was coming. A few months later, the Norman conquest began. Coincidence became prophecy after the fact. You don't think of yourself as a separate individual. You're part of a guild, a parish, a family. If one person sins, the whole village pays. With a failed harvest or plague, personal guilt barely exists. There's only collective guilt. Your body, to you, is a vessel, not a machine. Pain isn't a nerve signal, it's a trial sent from above. If your tooth aches for 3 years, you don't go to a doctor. There are almost none. You go to the relics of Saint Apollonia, and you pray. And yet, you're not stupid, you just think differently. In symbols, not causes. In analogies, not experiments. You know your land better than any agronomist ever could. You can read the color of the sky and know if it'll rain tomorrow. You know hundreds of prayers, songs, and stories by heart, because you can't write, and you can't afford to forget. At the edge of every map of your time, there be dragons, not because map makers believed in dragons, but because where knowledge ends, something has to fill the space. Emptiness is more frightening than any monster. Death doesn't hide from you the way it hides from us. You see it every day. Child mortality is close to 50%. On church walls they paint the dance of death, a skeleton leading a king, a bishop, a peasant, a child, all by the hand. A reminder, before death, everyone is equal. It's not decoration, it's an instruction for how to live. But here's what matters. Despite all this fear, the medieval world was not cruel to the weak. Monasteries built hospitals for the poor and the disabled. The Knights Hospitaller cared for pilgrims who collapsed from hunger on the road to Jerusalem. In towns, guilds pooled, shared funds. If a craftsman lost an arm at work, his family was fed by the community. Lepers were exiled from towns, but not left to die. Separate shelters were built for them, leper houses, where they were fed and buried as Christians. Monks copied books by candlelight for years, not for profit, but because they believed knowledge must not be allowed to die. A single book of hours could take a decade to make, gilded page by page in gold, by the hands of a man who knew he wouldn't live to see it finished. Building a cathedral took 100, 200 years. People laid the foundation knowing only their great-grandchildren would see the dome completed. This wasn't naivety, it was trust. Trust in a future they themselves would never see. The medieval mind wasn't a primitive version of ours. It wasn't wrong. It answered the world in the language it was given, the language of faith, symbol, and community. And that language worked. It held people together where there was no science, no state, no guarantees. Through plague, famine, and war, it wasn't machines or heroes who survived, it was people who believed in each other, and believed that beyond the horizon there was meaning, even if they could never see it themselves, and the candle burns until morning comes.